I was rewatching some matches from Combo Breaker 2022 this year, and I thought one round in Game 4 between Fu and Crocs and Socks was really cool. I play Haehyun as a secondary character, and I've been trying to refresh my muscle memory with her, so I was especially interested in seeing Fu on a big stage against a character as explosive as Slayer. Unlike my video on Nage vs Tomo, I don't have an extensive knowledge of the players here. All I can say is that Fu is one of the best Haehyun players in North America. Crocs and Socks isn't quite the best Slayer in North America, but he's very strong and has improved a lot in the last few years. He plays a very distinct style of Slayer and likes doing burst dead on time. Who doesn't? Slayer has a lot of polarizing matchups, and Haehyun is particularly bad for him. Both characters are quite volatile, but Haehyun's S tuning ball gives her the edge in neutral. Haehyun's tuning balls control a lot of the screen, which puts severe limits on how Slayer can move around. Normally, setting up a ball can be a hassle in neutral, but Slayer can't reliably punish the ball without a pretty big commitment. Haehyun's 2P is also an extremely good move for mashing, which gives Slayer a lot of trouble since much of his pressure is built around small gaps that set up counter hits. Because Haehyun 2P is 4 frames startup, 1 frame faster than average, and very large, Haehyun can challenge a lot of Slayer's pressure, especially after an instant block. The block punishment is also incredibly rewarding because 2P easily leads into a good knockdown and H-ball set play. Slayer's absurd damage output and stun are also less meaningful in this matchup compared to a lot of others, since Haehyun has equally high damage and is very durable herself. A lot of characters with bad escape options like Raven or Bedman have to respect a lot of Slayer's pressure because the threat of a counter hit is potentially round-ending. It's still Slayer, of course, but the simple fact is that Haehyun can afford to take more risks than most other characters. One other thing I like about long sets like these are how the players can make decisions at round start. There are often some subtleties that only become apparent when you go back and compare each round in sequence. In this case, though, both players were just doing haymakers. I'd like to say something intelligent here and give them the benefit of the doubt, but Crocs did a lot of aggressive options like forward dash bite, instant air dash, and pile bunker. Fu did some equally aggro options like raw Shinken, although he did block a bit more. Considering that Shinken is only -11 and will practically win the round if it connects, I don't begrudge Fu too much for being liberal with it. Again, this underscores how volatile the matchup is. Both players are willing to gamble a lot at round start since the neutral game will involve a fair amount of gambling anyway. Anyway, I'll let the round speak for itself first and then go over it in detail. See you in a minute.
You get to play a great player, he gets hit by all the craziest things in the book, and you get to hit him with the craziest things in the book.
So, let's see what we got here. It's the ID pressure. I'm not saying it's unique to him, but he does favor it a lot.
This is a lot of damage really quickly.
This is a Slayer round.
Fu not going to use burst probably.
And not falling for the tech trap there.
Fu hasn't given up though.
He tried to be a scumbag. That's not going to do anything.
Uh-oh. You don't want to let Haehyun get started though.
Rough.
Yo. Okay, plus frames. Nice
all you
back
need is
dash
like
cancel jump.
one button. Oh my goodness.
Yo, the third strike?
Fu is a beast.
Oh wow.
Tech
Almost.
buttons, what are you gonna do? Don't waste it. He wants his round so bad.
Yo. Fu! Clawing his way back this round.
Oh my goodness. He has super
Oh my
again.
gosh. Yo, is he going
Don't
to
burst
take
it, don't burst it.
I have to
was gonna say,
respect
don't burst
Crocs.
it.
I would have
Don't
bursted.
burst it.
I would
Don't
have been
burst it.
mad.
The round begins with Slayer doing a standard 5k 6H string, which has a small gap on block. 6H itself is slightly minus, but because it connected with the second hitbox here, it's actually plus. Crocs decides to fish for a rewarding counter hit with another 6H, since Fu was being defensive and blocking. Fu tries to backdash and gets hit airborne. Mathematically, Slayer 6H will combo to pile bunker on both airborne hit and ground hit, but a low airborne hit like this may not have worked. In either case, Crocs doesn't do anything out of the dandy step and instead gets a knockdown. He decides to go for a meaty 6k, which will be a counter hit if Fu mashes throw, and plus on block otherwise. Side note, inconsistent or scrambly situations like this are a huge part of what makes Guilty Gear Okizeme and Pressure interesting. I'm sure that Slayer could have done something a bit more threatening than meaty 6k here, but because Crocs either didn't expect the situation or didn't know exactly what his character could do, he had to trust his gut and default to something more reliable. This happens all the time in Exert and Plus R. Initially, I wasn't sure why Fu got hit here, but you can see he simply mistimed an instant block. He then tries to mash with 2P, but Croc's block confirmed during his close S far S block string, so he goes for a 2K frame trap. The reason I say block confirmed, like a hit confirm but for a block string, is that Slayer far slash is +6 on normal block and 2K is 6 frames startup. So this combination actually doesn't do anything on normal block. He wouldn't have just autopiloted into it. Crocs is a little too far away to reliably confirm into a knockdown from 5K, so he air dashes instead. Fu jumps and blocks, but after being staircased back to the ground, he mashes and gets counter hit by Slayer close slash. Looking at the footage, I'm not actually sure what he tried to mash here. The animation might be 5H, and the throw would make sense, but Slayer was definitely in throw range, so I think he would have been thrown if that had been Fu's choice. After a knockdown and some more pressure, Fu tries to mash twice and gets his 2D whiff punished by Pile Bunker RRC. This is one of Slayer's highest damage starters, especially in the corner. But between the RC scaling, Haehyun's guts, and the dust scaling, Fu survives with a sliver of life. Crocs ends the combo with a tech trap and tries to throw Fu's tech, but Fu decides to hit the ground instead, causing Crocs to whiff jump H in the air. Luckily for him, Slayer jump H recovers quickly enough for Crocs to do an air dash on the way down. Fu repeats his earlier instant block strategy and Crocs goes for the same frame trap. Fu gets hit, but it isn't a counter hit. Initially I thought he mistimed the mash or was trying to jump, but you can see he's still crouching. He likely wasn't buffering the 236-236 motion to Haehyun's reversal super since he didn't have 50 tension. Perhaps he simply mistimed an instant block? I'm really not sure. Rather than take a middling combo, Crocs decides to reset into FTC Bite, which Fu jumps. This is the first point in the round where Fu hasn't been playing from a disadvantage. I think the first thing he tries here is an S-ball YRC, which is sadly hit by Slayer 5K. This is actually a huge deal because on counter hit, this would have comboed into 6H and Fu would have died. As it stands, Crocs decides to back off after his 6H and Fu spends 25 meter on 6H YRC. Despite being hideously unsafe, Haehyun's 6H moves her forward very quickly during its startup, so it can be a gimmicky movement option if you absolutely need it. Fu absolutely did. Fu escapes the corner and the first thing he does is set up an S-ball which protects him. Crocs backs up for a bit before forcing his way in with an air dash YRC, but a clutch instant block and throw give Fu the opportunity to start Haehyun's Okizeme. Although nothing much comes of it, Fu does at least keep himself safe by positioning the H-ball off screen and making Crocs worry about something he can't see. Fu suspects that Crocs is playing defensively here and goes for a charged reverse Falcon Dive, which is interruptible but +5 on block. There's only a 2-frame gap between the Falcon Dive and Haehyun 5K, but that's enough time for Slayer to BDC jump and escape completely. No other character could do this without spending meter, which is something you should remember the next time your local Slayer player tells you how much he'd rather be playing +R. Fu backs off for a minute before sticking out a poke and hit confirming it into Haehyun's clap super. Although Haehyun is loosely inspired by Street Fighter's Goken, and although this is literally a crouching medium kick single hit confirm into a super, this is not actually similar to a Street Fighter single hit confirm. I'd like to give Fu credit for being just that stone cold, but the counter hit gave him even more time. Anyway, the important thing is that Fu has two options with the super. He can either hit immediately and keep the corner, or position Slayer behind his back to set up Shinken loops. What happens here is a third option which I don't think Fu was trying for. Slayer gets hit by the reverse hitbox of the super as planned, but he goes over top of Haehyun's head. Fortunately, Fu is just that stone cold and has practiced his combos for just such an occasion. He gets a short combo for good damage and keeps the corner. Except that he drops the combo and allows Crocs to tech out, which means another scramble. You see what I mean about inconsistency forcing players to make decisions? These are genuinely two of the best players in North America, and they still drop combos. It's just part of the game. The two jump around for a bit until Fu gets a strange-looking anti-air with 6H. I'm not sure what he was going for here since Haehyun's H buttons aren't great anti-airs. My best guess is that he wanted an air throw but screwed up his input and didn't get off the ground, but I really have no idea. Anyway, the 6H knockdown lets Fu set up an H-ball, which covers him as Crocs repositions. Crocs tries jumping to escape the ball, and Fu tries to throw him. Funnily enough, the throw whiffs, and Crocs actually could have blocked the jump H here, but I suspect he was trying to air dash or double jump or something, which meant he stopped holding backwards. Remember what I said about inconsistency forcing players to make decisions? Well, Haehyun's H-ball Okizeme tends to be unsafe when she's directly next to her opponent due to wake-up throw. So here, Fu decides to go for an OTG setup into Celestial Tuning Ball. It's almost always possible to tech out of OTGs in Exert due to the buffer on teching, but Crocs either misses it or chooses not to. It would make sense to choose not to tech here, since he wouldn't escape the corner anyway, and Fu would have some scary tech trap options. Sadly for Crocs, he doesn't BDC out of the Celestial Tuning Ball, which means he has to block the incoming high-low air dash mix-up. This mix-up is a fundamental part of Guilty Gear offense, which says something about how high power the game is. The fact we've only seen it a couple times this round also speaks to the player's abilities to escape and challenge offense. Fu goes for an air dash and Crocs gets hit, choosing not to give up his burst. I guess he'd rather save it for burst super. I'd like to say that the next round is a super cool and interesting demonstration of the matchup, but it's actually pretty standard. That said, I do think the round I highlighted is a great example of how even the most seemingly chaotic and monkey-brained situations in Exert have a surprising amount of depth to them. Superficially, sure, it looks like Fu is mashing like an idiot and getting punished for it, but that's just a factor of how good Haehyun's mashing is, especially against Slayer's brand of frame trap pressure. Superficially, sure, it looks like Crocs is just mindlessly doing buttons and teleports, but Slayer's neutral game is very limited, and those committal options are practically the only things he has. In my other match analysis video with Nage playing Faust and Tomo playing Leo, I was able to give a lot more context to the matchup since it's a very standard attacker versus defender premise. We've all seen it before, even outside of fighting games. In this case, the matchup is more like two ships passing in the night, and the situations where one character has an advantage come and go a lot more quickly. What can seem to be mindless decisions are often chosen with some kind of intent, and I hope I've made that clearer to some of you. I'm not going to endorse Shinken as a round start option though. That one is on Fu. Thanks for watching. I know I've been promising some really cool videos in the pipeline for a better part of a year now, but between my locals starting back up and my job, I just don't have as much time as I used to. In any case, thanks again for all your patience. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the video and whether or not you'd like to see more of this bite-sized analysis format. I spend a fair amount of time watching Exert, and this kind of commentary track is usually running on repeat in my brain, so it's nice to get it out into the world. More good stuff coming when it's ready. Take care.